Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you today and a great honor. The few words I have today for you, I direct obviously to all of you, but especially to the young American Egyptians, to the young American Egyptian men and women, who I dedicate the few words I'm saying to today, in order to inspire them to stand by their brothers and sisters in Egypt, who every day go out to protest, knowing that they may not return. They stand up to the tyranny of a great dictatorship, a dictatorship that has lasted in our country for 60 years, that has kept our country back, that has not allowed it to develop, that has exploited the poor of our nation, that has spread corruption across the country, so that for the first time, 3 years ago, on January the 25th, when Egyptians came out to bring about change, real change, even that was stolen from them by the military on the 3rd of July 2013. They went to the ballot box 5 times and chose their leader, they chose their parliament, but that was stolen from them. Their elected president, the first democratically elected leader of Egypt, was kidnapped, along with his aides. And today, Egypt's prisons are full of men, women, and children. The human rights abuses in Egypt today are escalating by the minute. And to the citizens, the Egyptian Americans here, to the citizens of the United States and to Europe, the message is clear. The human rights abuses today are contrary to everything we stand for in this democracy and in the democracies of the West. The message must be clear. It must go out to all human rights organizations, to all parliamentarians, to all governments, to all peoples of conscience. What is happening in Egypt today needs to stop. And the support for the military dictatorship that is coming today from the United States administration and from other Western democracies needs to stop. We have a big role to play in doing this. We can take many actions, big and small, in order to ensure that we clarify the situation on the ground in our country of origin. We are duty-bound to do this not only because we are Egyptians, we are duty-bound to do this because there is a great injustice happening in our countries that will affect the whole region and will impact, and its impact will go beyond our region. What we are seeing today in terms of the rule of General Sisi and the interim government in Egypt is a new fascism. It's a fascism that pits one Egyptian against the other. It is based on discrimination and hatred of the other. It leads to civil strife and the hatred of Egyptian and against other Egyptians. It is similar to what we have seen in Syria, and it is something that is bound to spread if it is not stopped now. It is an evil that is reminiscent of the evil that Europe fought in the 1930s and 40s. We must not take it lightly, and we must not let the leaders in the West not recognize it for what it is. It is a fascism that threatens freedoms everywhere. We also must remember that we are the bearers of a just cause, and it is the cause of freedom for all, for future generations. Many have fallen in Egypt, many have sacrificed, and unless we stand up for them today, here in the West, with everything that we are capable with, whether through writing to the press, whether speaking out, through demonstrating, through lobbying our congresspeople, our congressmen and women, through every means possible, we are not doing our bit. And we must remember that the values that we cherish here, the values of democracy and the rule of law and respect for human rights, are the ones that we want to reach our part of the world. Every citizen of the world has a right to be able to have recourse to the law. In Egypt today, there is a state of fear and terror. A state of fear and terror that is perpetuated by the regime. No citizen in Egypt now can turn to the courts or to the police for justice. Can you imagine living in a society where crimes are committed against you and you have nowhere to turn? Can you believe that you can live in a society where as a protester, when you go out as a peaceful protester to demonstrate, you cannot get medical care? And if a doctor tries to help you, he may or she may be arrested. Egypt's prisons are filled with doctors and academics. This is a republic of fear. Egypt is a republic of fear. Must certainly go, but more than Sisi, the whole regime must go. When Egyptians came out on January the 25th, they managed to get rid of a corrupt leader, Mubarak. But the regime is still intact, and it is our fight against that regime that must continue, both in Egypt and outside Egypt. The level of corruption in the Egyptian state goes beyond the military. It penetrates the judiciary. It exists in the propaganda of the media. It affects every branch of the state, and it must be weeded out. The corruption in Egypt has to be the basis of our battle for reform and revolution. Egypt is in need of a revolution, and let us pray it will be a peaceful revolution. So far, men and women come out to protest in Egypt, and their strength is their peacefulness. Their strength is their faith that despite the bullets of the military and the security forces, they continue to come out and to sacrifice. And that peacefulness, God willing, will make enormous strides in order to win public opinion the world over. Believe me, it is having an effect. We just need to consolidate our forces. We need to unite our ranks. Because today our struggle is one struggle against the military regime in Egypt, and it must not succeed. We owe it to those who have fallen in Rab'a and in Nahda and elsewhere and throughout Egypt. The sacrifices have been many since January the 25th, and we will never forget. But it is not that we will not only never forget, we will not stop fighting, because this cause is a cause that, as I have said, is one about the development of our country. It is not just about bringing down a regime. We have to look to the future and see how we are going to build the new society that many are dreaming of. a society that respects the rule of law above all else, a society that respects human rights and does not discriminate between one and the other, a society that puts the military back in its barracks, a society that is a civil society for all, that embraces all. As we sit here today, we must remember that we cannot win this struggle alone. No one faction can do it alone. We have to stand together, shoulder to shoulder, in order to fight a great evil that has held our country back for 60 years. We will be an example to the whole region, and we will be an example to the world, inshallah.
We will never let you die. We will never let you die. We will never let you die. We will never let you die.
Let me finish with one reminder to those in Egypt, in the military, in the security forces, and in the interim government, who were responsible for the coup that ended our democratic experiment. Despite the flaws in that democratic experiment, it was nevertheless the beginnings of a new hope. And to all intents and purposes, we had free and fair elections. The military and its supporters stole the vote of every man and woman in Egypt. We want our democracy back, and we will have our democracy back. The message to the criminals and the terrorists of our nation, the military high command, General Sisi and his supporters in the interim government, need to know that they will be held accountable by the people of Egypt.
Yes.
And whether in the short term or later, they will be held accountable either in the International Criminal Court or in the courts of Egypt one day. We will never forget, however long it takes. They will be put on trial for the crimes they have committed against our people.